Chosen one. This message is not random, and it is not for everyone. It is for the soul that was tested in ways no one applauded, for the heart that carried weight silently, and for the believer Allah placed in situations so heavy that only sincerity could keep them standing. You were not tested with small trials that end quickly, nor with visible battles that earn sympathy. You were given the hardest test of all: patience without answers, strength without support, faith without reassurance, and obedience when it would have been easier to break. Many would have lost themselves. Many would have compromised their character. Many would have turned their backs on Allah, but you didn't. You stayed clean in a dirty world, soft in a harsh season, and faithful when the path made no sense. And today, this message comes as divine confirmation. Allah saw every tear, recorded every moment of restraint, and witnessed how you passed the test the right way. Listen closely, because these lessons are not motivation, they are revelation. Chosen one, understand this with depth and clarity, because only those who have lived it will recognize it. The most difficult test Allah gives is not chaos, enemies, loss, or visible hardship. It is silence, because silence strips the soul naked before its Lord and removes every external excuse to believe, forcing the heart to rely on Allah alone, without signs, without timelines, and without reassurance. And you were placed in seasons where nothing moved, doors did not open, answers did not come, and even your dua felt like it was rising into stillness. Yet you did not accuse Allah of neglect. You did not abandon prayer out of frustration, and you did not rush into disobedience just to feel alive again, because deep within you understood, perhaps without words, that Allah's silence is not rejection, but elevation in disguise. A sacred pause where sincerity is purified and intentions are weighed. For many worship Allah loudly when blessings flow, but only the chosen remain consistent when the sky gives no signs and the road offers no clarity. And Allah watched how you behaved when there was no immediate reward, how you spoke when there was no response, how you guarded your faith when doubt whispered that nothing was happening. And this is where most people fail, because silence tempts the heart to chase control, validation, or shortcuts. Yet you stayed still, anchored and obedient, trusting that Allah is working in the unseen, even when the scene feels empty. And by remaining faithful in silence, you proved that your Iman was not transactional, not conditional, and not dependent on outcomes, but rooted in trust in Al-Hakim, the Most Wise. And this is why silence did not break you. It prepared you, disciplined you, and quietly qualified you for what chaos never could. Because Allah does not reveal everything at once to those He is shaping deeply, and the fact that you endured the silence without losing your adab with Allah is proof that you passed one of the rarest and heaviest tests a believer can ever face. Chosen one, recognize this truth with full awareness, because it explains wounds that hardship alone could never cause. Allah did not only test you through circumstances, He tested you through people, because people have the power to reach places pain cannot touch, and you were hurt by those you were sincere with, doubted by those who benefited from your kindness, and judged by those who never knew your intentions. Yet Allah was not absent in those moments. He was watching carefully to see whether betrayal would turn you bitter, whether injustice would make you cruel, and whether disrespect would corrupt your character. And despite the weight of disappointment, you refused to become manipulative because you were used. You refused to harden your heart because you were misunderstood, and you refused to lower your standards because others lacked integrity, choosing instead to guard your manners, your tongue, and your actions, knowing that Allah is Al-Adl, the most just, even when justice is delayed. And this restraint is what separates the chosen from the broken, because many survive pain but fail the character test, allowing resentment to reshape them. Yet you understood that becoming like those who wronged you would be a greater loss than anything they took from you. So you left their accountability with Allah and protected your soul from becoming polluted by revenge, ego, or bitterness. And Allah saw how you controlled your reactions when no one would have blamed you for lashing out, how you maintained sincerity when hypocrisy surrounded you, and how you continued to do good even after being wounded. And this is why Allah trusts you with higher ranks, because power placed in the hands of the resentful destroys them, but power placed in the hands of the patient heals others. And by passing this test, you proved that your strength is not in domination or retaliation, but in discipline, restraint, and unwavering reliance on Allah, who promises that no act of patience, no moment of restraint, and no injustice endured with dignity is ever lost in His sight. Chosen one, this test was subtle but heavy, because Allah did not deny you. He delayed you, and delay tests the heart more than loss. For loss brings closure, while delay keeps hope suspended, stretching patience until only sincere trust can survive. And you waited through seasons where progress felt invisible, doors remained closed without explanation, and timelines dissolved into uncertainty, yet you did not accuse Allah of forgetting you. You did not abandon dua out of exhaustion, and you did not chase forbidden shortcuts just to feel ahead, because deep within your heart you understood that Allah is never late, only precise, and while others grow restless, complain, or compromise when time does not obey their expectations, you continued to show up for Allah with the same sincerity in the waiting as you would have in the receiving, guarding your tongue from despair, your actions from disobedience, and your heart from suspicion. And Allah was watching not how loudly you hoped, but how patiently you endured, because delay exposes whether trust is conditional or absolute. And you proved that your tawakkul was not tied to speed, ease, or visible progress, but anchored in certainty that Al-Hakim arranges every moment with wisdom beyond comprehension. And this is why the delay did not weaken you. It refined you, removed arrogance, deepened humility, strengthened reliance, and prepared your soul to carry blessings without being destroyed by them. Because Allah withholds not to punish, but to protect, and by waiting without losing trust, you passed a test that many fail quietly, proving that when your time arrives, you will receive it with gratitude, steadiness, and obedience, not entitlement or doubt. Chosen one, this test came at the exact moment when your strength was depleted, when your heart felt like it was barely holding itself together, when your mind was heavy with questions that had no answer, and when the weight of your circumstances made desperation feel justified, unbearable, and constant. And it was precisely there, at your lowest, darkest point, not at your highest, not in the seasons of comfort or ease, that Allah watched you most closely, because faith at this level is no longer theoretical, it is lived and tested in its rawest form. And in those moments, you were presented with doors that appeared to be relief, but were laced with compromise, opportunities that promised instant ease, but demanded you sacrifice your principles, your dignity, your honor, or your obedience even once. And no one would have known, no one would have blamed you, no one would have questioned your choices. Yet something deep within refused to move toward what was haram, not because it was easy to resist, but because your soul instinctively knew that a solution that displeases Allah can never bring true relief, never bring lasting peace, and never carry barakah. And even when your heart trembled, when your body ached with exhaustion, when your patience was stretched beyond what you thought it could endure, and when your future seemed uncertain and unpromising, you still chose halal, knowing that it would be slower, heavier, lonelier, and more painful to carry. And this choice revealed the depths of your sincerity and the reality of your Iman, because many worship Allah, pray to Him, and obey Him when it costs them nothing, but very few remain obedient when obedience feels like it might cost them everything, their comfort, their dignity, their peace, and their sanity. And Allah saw how you resisted justifying sin with suffering, how you refused to mutiny against His laws by saying, Allah will forgive this one slip, even when the temptation was loud, persistent, and seemingly harmless, and how you guarded your hands from reaching for what was forbidden, your tongue from speaking what was not right, your income from compromising its purity, and your actions from bending toward shortcuts that could have brought immediate relief, all while your body, mind, and soul were crying silently for release. And this restraint was not weakness, it was spiritual strength forged in the fire of hardship, a strength that emerges only when desperation meets discipline, pain meets patience, and struggle meets unwavering conviction, because hardship in the lowest moments is designed not to destroy you, but to expose sincerity, refine resolve, and strengthen reliance on Allah. And instead of allowing your trial to become a justification for disobedience, you transformed it into an opportunity for deeper faith, deeper humility, and deeper reliance on the one who sees what no one else sees. And Allah recorded every tear you swallowed, every silent dua you raised when no eyes were upon you, every moment you turned away from forbidden relief while your soul ached, and every instant you trusted that what is written for you will never require you to betray your Lord. And that single choice, quiet, unseen, uncelebrated by the world, shifted your destiny, because halal, chosen under pressure, carries immense weight in the unseen, purifies future provision, attracts barakah that cannot be measured, and builds spiritual elevation that no worldly shortcut could ever replicate. And this is why Allah prepares those like you for blessings that do not overwhelm, for elevation that does not corrupt, and for relief that arrives with serenity rather than regret. Because the one who honors Allah in their darkest hour, who remains obedient when all else seems lost, and who protects halal while the world pushes for compromise, is never abandoned. And when the light finally arrives, it comes fully, abundantly, and perfectly timed, because even at your lowest, Allah was your priority, and your halal choices made you untouchable, prepared you for the unseen, and readied you for elevation that will surpass what your heart can imagine. Chosen one, this test cut deeper than any visible hardship because it attacked not your comfort, your resources, or your physical strength, but your dignity, your honor, and the very essence of your sincerity. For Allah allowed you to be misunderstood when your intentions were pure, misjudged when your heart was sincere, and spoken about when you chose silence. And this is one of the heaviest trials a believer can endure, because the human ego naturally longs to explain, defend, clarify, and be seen. Yet Allah withheld people's understanding from you to see whether you would chase validation from creation or remain content with the approval of Him alone, and you were placed in situations where your actions were misread as weakness. Your silence was interpreted as indifference or guilt. Your patience was labeled as passivity, and your careful restraint was twisted into misunderstanding. Yet even in these moments, you did not perform righteousness for applause. You did not argue to protect your image, and you did not compromise your manners to win public opinion or prove your integrity, choosing instead to remain humble, measured, and dignified, knowing that Allah sees what people distort, knows what tongues twist, and recognizes the intentions hidden deep within the heart. And this restraint was far from easy, because being misunderstood isolates the soul, creates loneliness even in crowds, and tempts the heart to scream its truth just to breathe again, to justify itself, to demand recognition. Yet you resisted that temptation, holding your conduct, your manners, and your adab with Allah as your shield, understanding that your true elevation does not come from people's opinions, but from their Lord's unseen measure. And while many allow misjudgment to harden them, to make them cynical, defensive, or bitter, you allowed it to soften you, to deepen your sincerity, and to purify your intentions, reminding yourself that the prophets, peace be upon them, were misunderstood far more than any human could imagine, falsely accused of what they never did, rejected despite their truth, and yet remained humble, patient, and obedient, never swayed by public misconception, never lowered by false accusations, and never forced to fight for what Allah would ultimately establish for them. And Allah watched carefully how you responded when your name was questioned, when your motives were doubted, when your silence spoke louder than any defense you could offer, and when the world tried to define your value through misunderstanding rather than truth, testing whether humility would remain intact or collapse under pressure, whether your patience could survive the false judgments, whether your heart could remain soft while your reputation was distorted. And you passed because you did not confuse humility with humiliation, nor silence with surrender, nor restraint with weakness, but understood that not every truth requires announcement, not every accusation deserves response, and not every injustice needs confrontation. And Allah recorded every moment you swallowed your pride, every time you chose grace over retaliation, every instance you forgave in silence, and every second you trusted Him to reveal what needed to be revealed at the right time. And humility maintained under misunderstanding is not weakness, it is spiritual maturity, a maturity Allah grants only to those He intends to elevate without corrupting their hearts. And it is the mark of those He will honor quietly, without fanfare, without human applause, without worldly recognition, because praise gained through argument fades quickly, but honor preserved through patience and unwavering reliance on Allah is eternal. And Allah promises that the one who lowers themselves for His sake, who protects their adab even when misjudged, and who remains sincere when misunderstood, will be raised in ways that no explanation could ever achieve, in ways that will leave the world in awe but remain perfectly aligned with divine wisdom. And by remaining humble in the face of misunderstanding, you proved that your worth is not anchored to people's perception, but firmly rooted in Allah's knowledge of your heart. And this is a rank few ever reach, a strength few ever possess, and a reward few will ever be able to measure, because Allah elevates those who remain unseen in their obedience, unheard in their justice, and misunderstood in their sincerity. And by passing this test, you became a living example that true elevation is not about being understood, recognized, or validated by creation, but about being known, protected, and rewarded by the one who sees what no eye can see, who records what no mind can comprehend, and who honors what no tongue can describe. And this test, though silent and invisible to the world, has forever changed the trajectory of your soul, refined your character, and prepared you for elevations, blessings, and responsibilities that only the truly chosen are capable of carrying. Chosen one, this was the test no one applauded, no one noticed, and no one truly understood, because Allah did not make your greatest struggle visible. He placed it deep inside you, in the hidden chambers of your heart and soul, where even your closest companions could not reach, where smiles could hide storms, and appearances of strength could mask exhaustion, where the mind races relentlessly and the heart feels heavy with burdens that no one can carry for you. And in these unseen battles, you were forced to fight wars that had no witnesses, wars that required courage not of the body but of the heart and spirit, battles in the nights when your thoughts refused to rest, when anxiety tightened around your chest without warning, when fear whispered that your efforts were meaningless, when the silent weight of self-doubt questioned your worth, your progress, your purpose, and even the value of your prayers. And the fatigue you carried was not from physical labor, but from the relentless strain of carrying yourself, your responsibilities, your worries, and your faith without relief. And this inner battlefield was far more dangerous than any visible enemy, because there was no one to defend you except Allah. Yet instead of numbing your pain through sin, distraction, despair, or abandonment of faith, you chose to turn inward toward your Lord, to cry to Him in sujood when words failed, to whisper dua when your voice could not rise, to hold on to prayer when your heart felt heavy, distracted, and burdened. And Allah watched how you fought without validation, without applause, without acknowledgement, how you resisted the temptation to escape through haram comforts, instant gratifications, or shortcuts that could have dulled the pain but would have undone your sincerity, and how you continued to show up for Him even when your soul felt bruised, even when your heart ached, even when your body longed for rest, because inner struggles expose the truth of Iman when no one is watching, when there is no image to protect, when obedience brings no immediate relief, when the heart is weighed against unseen realities rather than worldly outcomes, and you endured moments where you questioned your strength, your direction, your ability to keep going, yet you did not surrender your faith to despair. You did not allow Shaitan to convince you that your trials rendered you unworthy. You did not turn away from Allah simply because healing was not instant, simply because comfort did not arrive quickly, simply because the world seemed indifferent. And this quiet perseverance is beloved to Allah, because the unseen jihad of the heart is heavier than visible trials, more rewarding than victories witnessed by the world, and far purer than deeds done for recognition. And Allah values the believer who keeps choosing Him while emotionally tired, while spiritually exhausted, while mentally drained, far more than the one who worships loudly only when inspired or applauded. And you learn to sit with discomfort without sinning, to feel pain without rebelling, to carry uncertainty without collapsing, to endure loneliness without compromise, and to trust without visible signs. And this discipline refined you in ways ease never could, because inner battles strip the ego, humble the soul, and force reliance that is pure, sincere, and uncluttered by pride, arrogance, or attachment to worldly outcomes. And Allah recorded every tear you wiped away before anyone noticed, every breath you took to steady yourself before prayer, every moment you chose patience over escape, every instant you reminded your soul to return to Him when the heart wanted to run from the test. Every night you stood firm, despite fatigue, fear, or despair, and every time you rose again after feeling broken inside, strengthened by His presence, even when it was unseen. And this is why Allah trusts you with deeper understanding, quieter strength, and a heart that can recognize truth without noise. Because you did not fight to be seen, you fought to remain sincere. And by battling your inner struggles with Allah alone, you proved that your faith does not depend on circumstances, on comfort, on validation, on worldly recognition, or on the ease of your path, but on conviction, reliance, and love for Allah that transcends all trials. And the one who survives inner wars without losing their connection to Allah emerges with a resilience, a clarity, and a depth of heart that cannot be shaken by the world, cannot be corrupted by envy or malice, and cannot be derailed by misfortune. For Allah does not waste the pain endured privately for His sake, and every unseen battle you fought, every tear, every whispered dua, every night of fear, every moment of quiet endurance, every silent act of obedience has already shaped the believer you are becoming, building within you a heart refined like gold through fire, a soul sharpened by perseverance, and a spirit fortified to carry blessings, responsibilities, and elevation that only the chosen can bear. And know this, chosen one: the battles no one saw, the nights no one witnessed, the struggles no one could measure, these are the very things that Allah uses to prepare you for greatness, to ready your heart for mercy, your soul for rank, and your path for a destiny that will honor every moment you chose Him alone above all else. Chosen one, hear this truth deeply, because it is the culmination of every test, every trial, every silent struggle, and every moment of divine filtration. The hardest test Allah ever gave you was not to endure suffering, betrayal, or loss, for those are visible, and many can survive them, but the true test was whether you could remain soft-hearted, tender, and merciful after all the pain, after all the injustice, after all the nights when your soul screamed for relief, and your heart was heavy with grief and disappointment. And this test was far greater than any external trial, because remaining soft in a world that can break you, deceive you, and despise you requires a strength that cannot be measured by force, wealth, or status. And while others hardened their hearts, became cynical, or let bitterness dictate their actions, you remained gentle, choosing compassion over revenge, forgiveness over retaliation, patience over anger, and mercy over judgment. And this was not weakness, it was an act of courage, far beyond what the eye can see, because the soft-hearted carry their pain with dignity, respond to cruelty with restraint, and maintain love in hearts where hatred could easily take root. And Allah observed every subtle choice you made. Every time you forgave silently when people deserved confrontation, every time you prayed for those who hurt you when vengeance would have been easy, every time you showed humility in a world that demanded pride, and every time you nurtured goodness in others while the world was busy spreading darkness. And through this, Allah measured your sincerity, your integrity, and your readiness for elevation. Because a heart that stays soft under attack, under misunderstanding, under delay, and under betrayal is a heart that will never corrupt when blessed with power, influence, or success. And you passed this test with excellence. For softness in adversity is the mark of the chosen, the signal that your soul is aligned with the divine, and the proof that Allah can entrust you with things far greater than your mind can comprehend, things that will require your mercy, your compassion, and your unwavering faith. And this is why your patience, your humility, and your tenderness are now your armor, shielding you from corruption, guiding you through trials, and illuminating the path for those who will follow you. And know this: the world may see your victories, your elevation, or your success, but only Allah knows the depth of your trials, the silent nights you endured, and the softness you preserved. And He rewards the one who remains tender when all else is harsh, who keeps faith when all else is doubting, and who chooses love when all else chooses hate. And by passing this final and greatest test, you have demonstrated that your spirit is refined, your heart is unbreakable in obedience, and your soul is ready to receive what Allah has written for you, because the one who remains soft after everything is not only a survivor, they are the chosen, the beloved, and the next in line for a destiny that will honor their perseverance, patience, and unwavering connection to the Most Merciful. And Allah has witnessed every tear, every act of restraint, every prayer whispered in the dark, and every moment you chose love over bitterness. And know that your reward is already secured, your path already guided, and your elevation already decreed, because the hardest test was to remain soft, and you passed with the heart of a believer, the soul of a servant, and the strength of one truly aligned with Allah. Chosen one, if you have listened closely, felt every word, and allowed your heart to absorb this truth. Know this: Allah saw every tear you shed in silence, every prayer you whispered when hope seemed far, and every moment you chose obedience when the world tempted you to break. You passed the hardest test of all, not by force, not by anger, not by shortcuts, but by patience, sincerity, humility, and unwavering reliance on Him. And this is why your elevation is certain, your reward is secure, and your destiny is already aligned with the decree of the Most Merciful. Remember, the world may misunderstand you, people may judge you, delays may stretch longer than your heart can bear, but nothing can shake what Allah has written for you, nothing can derail what He has prepared, and nothing can extinguish the light He placed within you. So stand firm, remain soft, guard your heart, and trust in Him, because the one who passes the hardest test with sincerity becomes unstoppable in their faith, untouchable by injustice, and unshakable in their purpose. If this message has reached your heart, share it with those who are silently struggling, uplift those who are being tested, and remind the world that Allah's chosen are not defeated, They are refined, strengthened, and ready for their divine elevation. May Allah protect you, honor your patience, reward your struggles, and grant you the blessings of the unseen that no one else can measure. This is your time, your test is over, and your triumph has already begun.